So this is the iPhone 16 Pro Max, and we just did a speed test comparison against the iPhone 13 Pro Max 4 years later. Today we're going to find out by the end of this video if the 14 Pro Max 3 years later is basically still a great performer or if it's really starting to show its age. So that's what we're going to find out. Let's see what happens. So what is up, guys? Nick here, helping you to master your technology, and let's go ahead and begin with a boot up test between both of these phones in 3, 2, go, and see which one can get there first. Now, the only issue I have with the iPhone 14 Pro Max at this time is that it has no support for Apple Intelligence, which makes it a hard recommendation for people spending their hard-earned money on the device because it doesn't support some of the potentially improved features down the line, but it will have lighter versions of the iOS software and will still be updated. So the 14 Pro Max actually did turn on first. I don't know why it's so dark right now. Hold on, let me brighten it up a bit. Looks pretty good there now. But the 14 Pro Max actually turned on faster than the iPhone 16 Pro Max right there. So that was a little bit shocking. But then again, not really, because the 13 Pro Max in my prior speed test actually booted up first as well. Now we take a look at Face ID. They both do have dynamic islands, and the 14 Pro Max was the iPhone that introduced dynamic island. I think it also was the one with the always on display the first time. So a lot of the features that were introduced, 48 megapixel camera on the iPhone 14 Pro Max, are actually still on the iPhone 16 Pro Max. Some people argued that this phone was kind of not a true upgrade because it's not that much better than a 13 Pro Max, but it did have some notable upgrades. Now we take a look at the software. We are going to be on the iOS 18.6.2, which actually got released yesterday. So if you haven't done your update, you want to go ahead and do it. And over here, 18.6.2 on this phone as well, having a little bit of focus issue right there, probably because the screen's too bright. You'll see right there, 18.6.2, and then Apple A16 Bionic clocked in at 3.46 gigahertz. This one is the Apple A18 Pro, clocked in at 4.04 gigahertz, 8 gigabytes of RAM there. And on this phone, we're still with the 6 gigs we found on the iPhone 13 Pro Max. Now, generally scrolling across the software between both of these is not going to show you a substantial difference. So let's go ahead and do that now. Let me zoom in a bit here. As we kind of just navigate the software, it's just not very different whatsoever. So you're not going to see any difference, mostly because they both do have a ProMotion display. This is not like a Plus or a non-Pro iPhone. They both kind of just scroll exactly the same. So when you do upgrade from a 14 Pro Max to a 16 Pro Max, you might feel like it's faster launching a few apps and games, but generally it tends to operate across the system about the same. So that's a good thing for you if you want to maintain that fluid iPhone feel. But at the same time, the 14 Pro Max now is still really a solid offering. So let's go ahead and make sure everything is closed out now. And let's go ahead and get into the app test. So here you're at the app test, and everything is closed out for both phones. Let's go ahead and go into calendar here, and you could see basically the same. I do like the 6.7 inch size though still, even though we're now on the 6.9, just because it does feel like a little bit more easy to hold in terms of easier to use, even though it's not that much different. But the 6.9 is glorious if you love a large display. It really is. And you see right there, faster on the iPhone 16 Pro Max, a little bit quicker there on the 16 Pro Max, probably due to that pop-up. Let's go to Grok here. We'll skip. And generally, just using both of these when it comes to using the chat servers for these AI chatbots, they're really just not going to be that hard to use on either. And it's not really like you need the Apple Intelligence to use something like that. You could do that on basically any modern smartphone. Let's go over here to YouTube, and we'll go over here to this area, and we'll go into music and TV. Let's go to free with ads, live, and scrolling kind of the same. Swipe up out of there. We'll go into Instagram. And let me go ahead and click right here. The new Pixels just got announced. And we'll go ahead and scroll over here. As I scroll through my feed, you'll see both of them do a fine job there. Let's go ahead and actually look at the Made by Google, since that's what's kind of trending right now anyway. So it's a good test for a real world test here. We'll go to the page here. Just kind of scroll through. I think these are different. That's the Pixel page, but you get the point. you click a photo, you know, it's going to look pretty good. So it doesn't matter on either phone here. You're kind of just doing fine, even in real world use. You've seen some real world scrolling there and sub menus and stuff of that sort. Kind of scrolling through here. I don't care if you do an action right here. So the thing is like, do you game a lot? Like, are you really gaming a lot? That is a substantial reason to upgrade. Let's go over to categories. But 3 years later, I feel like the iPhone 14 Pro Max hasn't missed a beat. Really hasn't. That was faster on the 16 Pro Max there. But I think what we need to really see upgrades is maybe a lot more RAM on the iPhone, but also smoother animations, faster animations. Those would probably really make the phone feel like it's in a different category. Although, if you have a 14 Pro Max and your battery health is not high, you could potentially be running into more issues than I am right now. I still have like 99% on here. So erase the sun, and that was faster on iPhone. As I mentioned earlier, the gaming department still going to be a substantial improvement to the iPhone. If I go over here to 16 Pro Max, this is the area that really shines for the newer phones. It's always like that, and it remains the same here. Although this time it looks like the iPhone 14 Pro Max is loading at first. Never mind. The iPhones, see, they be trading these. Sometimes, you know, it looks like it's going faster on an older phone, but it's not. If you want a game for extended sessions, I think waiting for the 17 Pro Max is a good deal. They're going to probably be thicker and have bigger battery. If you want to get the 16 Pro Max after the fact for a cheaper price, it'll still be a nice upgrade from your older 14 Pro Max if gaming is important. Because even here, you can see the reduced bezels, bigger screen. This is where I love the larger screen. It's just definitely a better experience. Let's go into Call of Duty. But for daily casual, not even casual, for daily regular hard use, you don't really notice that the 3 years later on this phone. It kind of feels like it just came out a year or two ago. It doesn't feel like it's about to be 3 years old, because it is. It came out in 2022. So this time it just seems to be flying. Call of Duty loaded first here. Wonder what's going on that side. I did actually update these. I always update before doing a speed test. So let me see if that got hung up there. Let's see if it'll load this time. And we see, okay, it's loading up now. It looks like on that first initial launch, yeah, see, there it goes. On that initial launch, it got hung up. I don't know what that was about. But yeah, that one's going to have to go to the 14 Pro Max in this test, just for the 16 Pro Max getting hung up there. But that was faster on the 16 Pro Max for Luma. We'll go into Geekbench 6. 3D Mark, faster on the left. And Speed Test Net, faster on the left. And InShot, faster on the left. So a hair quicker on a few apps. But really, the 16 Pro Max pulled ahead mostly when it comes to the gaming department. So casual apps, really good. The iPhone 14 Pro Max, still very good in gaming. A hair behind the 16 Pro Max in gaming launch times. In actual performance, the 16 Pro Max's GPU is more powerful, so it will actually do a better sustained gaming session if you are especially playing things like graphically demanding games, Call of Duty, PUBG Mobile, Car X Street, Need for Speed, Asphalt. Like, these kind of games might perform better in a longer session. That's really where it shines. Also, if you are rendering out a video, it's going to be faster on the iPhone 16 Pro Max than the 14 Pro Max. Let's go ahead and do our RAM management test now. So the iPhone 16 Pro Max has been impressing me all year with its exceptional RAM management, as you can see, and it's even better here now than ever before. And as we scroll through and we relaunch these applications, they tend to just always be held properly and showing no issues whatsoever. Now, the only issue I do have is we have all this performance, all this screen size, and I've mentioned it and I'll keep mentioning it until it comes to fruition. We don't have ourselves the split screening abilities. And where is the landscape mode for real, bro? Like, there's a ton of space on here. Like, where is it? It's nowhere to be found. It really is nowhere to be found. So let's go ahead and take a look now at the RAM management on the iPhone 14 Pro Max. So this one does have 6 gigabytes of RAM. So I wonder if that will change anything about this as we go through here. This is also looking very good. Oh, that one was a little bit slower looking, the RTS. I don't know why, it just feels a little slower to me. I'm not sure if it's just me, but it's holding it very well. But it does seem slightly less snappy than the 16 Pro Max, but not a substantial issue or difference, not enough at all to even make you think this was 3 years old. It feels like a brand new phone, basically. And so our final benchmark scores are in, and you can see we have a 3202 for the single core on the 16 Pro Max and a 2618 on the 14 Pro Max. Now, if you look at the multi-core score, it's about 1600 points better on the 16 Pro Max. But when I look at those single cores, I don't see a substantial boost. So I feel like in day-to-day, and you can see 18.6.2, I just feel like it's not that much different here. So you really want to upgrade a 14 Pro Max if you want better battery life, you want the lighter titanium design, the cameras, and also you want maybe more RAM support for the Apple Intelligence. That's where I think you'll really shine. But let's see if we can shine more here in the department of graphics. So we'll go over here to 3D Mark. We'll scroll over to the Wildlife Extreme test. This is a short test that actually will test the graphical performance. Let's go over there. We'll open this one up, Wildlife Extreme, and I will be back when these two are done with the test. So I'll be back here shortly. And so our final 3D Mark Wildlife Extreme test is in, and you could see that 27.7 FPS with an overall score of 4629. Almost 3 years later here, 18.1 FPS, so less than 10 less. So it's not that bad, but take a look at the graph there. As you can see that the iPhone 14 Pro Max tends to fall off pretty hard right there and never really recovers up. You can see that the iPhone 16 Pro Max, if we take a look at the, hold on, if you take a look at the graph here, it also fell off a bit here, but it climbs a little more there versus the iPhone. You can see right there, it doesn't climb quite as much there on the iPhone 14 Pro Max. And the iPhone 14 Pro Max scores better than only 61% of devices on the market right now versus 87 on the iPhone 16 Pro Max. Like I said in my previous video, though, if you still want the fastest Apple product on the market, you're going to want to go with something like the iPad Pro M4. All right, so let's go ahead and launch the cameras and see how fast they can do that here in 2025. In 3, 2, go. And I didn't see a substantial difference, although we were on video there. So let's run it back. 3, 2, go. Faster there on the 16 Pro Max. Also, you have a camera control button. 3, 2, go. And the 14 Pro Max doesn't really even have a action button. So that's something you'll upgrade as well if you like buttons. Let's go ahead and see how the zooming looks. Now, I noticed on the iPhone 16 Pro Max, when we jump between the 24 and the 13mm ultra wide, there is a pretty noticeable stutter right there when we switch those lenses right there. You see it? It's like it jumps kind of stuttery there. Let's see if the iPhone 14 Pro Max does that. So a little bit smoother actually. So I don't know what that is on my 16 Pro Max. Let me know if yours does that, but going through the full range of the lenses here, it just feels a little smoother there on the 14 Pro Max for some reason than the iPhone 16 Pro Max. So final verdict here, after about 3 years, it's going to be next month with the 14 Pro Max. I'm not going to have time to cover this when those come. I will be covering this against the 17 Pro Max, so stay tuned for that as well. But at this point, I do feel like the 14 Pro Max is definitely one I would upgrade if you care about other things outside of performance, because there are plenty here, even on the 16 Pro Max over this device that are upgrades. But as the 17 Pro Max comes out, they're going to be even more substantial. But at the end of the day, the 14 Pro Max performs really well if you don't care about Apple Intelligence, which a lot of people that I've seen don't really seem to care about. It's also the last iPhone that had stainless steel, and the space black is really gorgeous. It feels very premium. So you can definitely hold out with this one till next year's 18. If you want a larger redesign, you maybe want to venture into the first iPhone foldable, which is likely to come next year. But if you're just looking for a max upgrade, maybe your battery's trashing, I would say wait. The 16 Pro Max will come down if the 17 Pro Max doesn't impress you, so it's probably just the best option to wait right now. But the 16 Pro Max outperformed the 14 Pro Max by a good 20-30%, I feel like, in this video. Let me know your thoughts down below in the comments section. Do you have a 14 Pro Max? Do you plan to buy a 16 Pro Max? Do you plan to wait for the 17 Pro Max? Let's hear your thoughts on your ownership experience with this so far. It's interesting to know how things are holding up. Anyway, I'll catch you on the next one. Nick here. Be sure to be well, and peace.